Thank you, Sky. It's the first time I've heard him. I missed something. Welcome. I want to start off with a little story, and it's a church story, and it's about a congregation that every year did their big bash on Saturday night. And then, well, it was where one of the rituals was to recognize people in the congregation that had done extraordinary things or were exemplified extraordinary qualities. And we've done the same thing here. You know, you see them on the wall when you come in. These are slightly different ones. But before we go on with this, I want to ask, because I'm going to use proper names, is there anybody out here that has the name of Genevieve or Jean-Vive? Okay, good. How about Arthur or Arthur? Is there an Arthur here? No. Okay, thought I saw it. Good. So far, we're doing good. How about Iris? 3 out of 4. And Maxwell. Is there a Maxwell? Oh, good. Then I don't have to change this around. So think about awards being handed out for various qualities that have been going on in this, not our congregation, I promise. So we'll start with the first one, the Honesty Award. And this award, one of the congregants happened to be a goldsmith and a jeweler. And what he created for these folks, you've probably all experienced the Olympics, and you know what a gold medal looks like, right? It's got this gorgeous blue ribbon, kind of like this. And it's gold, and that medallion's about this big, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, and that's what they were handing out. And for honesty, Genevieve got it. And then for the quality of perseverance. Now, perseverance could also be called tenacity. Anything, any quality that we have, however, I think we can overdo it a bit. So then it becomes stubbornness. Now we haven't done that, and none of these people did either. So then from there we go to generosity. Now, generosity is money, but it is so much more than money, and we know that around here. And that one went to Iris. And then the final one was humility. And that one went to Maxwell. And they all went home, including Maxwell, and he had his medallion and, you know, put it around his head, and then came home and told the family and hung it up right, you know, there in the living room. And then it was time to go to the congregation, to the church the next morning. And Maxwell put on his humility medallion and walked into the church, and they took it away from him. We can get a little bit tied up in what it is we think we're about. But one of the qualities that I think, and let's talk about our qualities for just a second. We all came together a few years ago, and remember in the days when we would go into the Sibley Hall, we got out these papers and pads, and everybody would write qualities of what we wanted to be and do and have and all that stuff. And all of a sudden these things were, literally, they were pasted all around the room. Do you remember that? no wonder we didn't get all that much done. There was just too much to bite off at one time. It was like trying to eat an elephant in a day. Can't be done. So one of the community spiritual leaders came to us and said, why don't you just start with what you can manage? Pick a number. And the number was 4. And the 4 are, help me out here, I got them written down, but I'm wanting a little interaction too. And thank you. That's the first one. And that's a quality of being. See, I look at these and I'm thinking, we have to have qualities of being, because we're human beings. And then we have to have qualities of doing, human doings. Now, most of I can't speak for you, but when I came here, I was the biggest human doing that I knew. So the other quality of being is joy. Then we come to, oh boy, give me another one. Inclusivity. Now, somehow in my head for the last while, because I'm not used to looking up at them on the wall, I've been saying diversity. Diversity means that we want to see people of all shapes, sizes, colors, ages, flavors, spots, no spots, hair, no hair, whatever color or none. And we're looking for that human family to be here and welcome it. And we are a welcoming congregation, we know that. But Eugene Holden, who's been here a couple of times, he's been a practitioner for a very long time, and he's on the ministerial track, for which most of us are very grateful. And he's a friend of ours, not only of y'all, but of Penny and me. And Eugene was speaking about and saying, you know, diversity is swell, but once somebody has been here, how are we including them and saying, if you choose to be, you are part of the family, and mean it. And I'm going to stop with this one because I'm going to tell you a story and an observation, and it's a true one. I've been in a leadership role here for a while, and there have been some wonderful changes, but there is one of the things that I have personally kind of forgotten from time to time. Somebody once said that I never met a microphone I didn't like. Part of it has to do with the fact that I was educated in broadcasting, and I guess some of that stuck. And then as I spent more time around here, I realized that Spirit, God, by whatever name you want to call it, is really the great engineer. And he engineered me with 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. And so it has been my affirmation, not necessarily my performance all the way through, to have something to say about everything. Well, guess what? We're all works in process. And it would be nice to be able to go back, but, you know, that ship has left the dock. So it's clear that, and some of you have heard me say this already, God put me on this earth to accomplish a certain number of things. Right now, I'm so far behind, I may never die. That too is an affirmation, because none of us is getting out alive. But when I don't get to choose when. I don't get to choose the circumstances. That's the boss's job. That's that ultimate wisdom that lives out there. And when it's time, I may not be in agreement with it, but I know I can't change it. And I also know that there is something inside of me, inside of you, inside of every one of us that is eternal. That doesn't die. We have, and whatever legacy we're going to leave, that's going to be our remembrance. I loved that song because that song speaks to the home I grew up in, and it speaks to in this thing called spiritual growth, we make a mistake or two along the way. Especially in relationships. Boy, relationships, is that a place where we work things out, or isn't it? Well, I'm so delighted my wife is here. We've had one ongoing argument in our relationship. We each think we married up. We each think we got the better deal. And I didn't make that up. I heard it from somebody else whose relationship was kind of that way. And that's one of the perks of having love in a house or having love in a community. I have to, this is a quote from somebody whose name I did not write down, but you'll just have to take my word for it. I didn't make it up. We need to believe in our hearts that we're meant to live a life full of passion, purpose, magic, and miracles. And when miracles happen, they are natural things. It's love that inspires them. A miracle is a natural thing. And when they don't happen, something down here has gone wrong. And it's up to us to find out what that is. And in going through the various things that we're going to be offering up, you'll find it. And you'll see a path, as all the practitioner corps sees a path to transforming it into just that, a life of passion, purpose, magic, and miracles. I'm going to speak of the practitioners for just a moment. We're classified as clergy, but we haven't been through that 3-year ministerial school. We have been through a school that is there to ground us in the principles themselves, and to be able to look at you and see the divinity, period, paragraph, the end. And if we don't see the divinity from the moment we meet you one-on-one, something has gone wrong. Matura Papke was Ernest Holmes' practitioner, and she tells a story about going to a hospital to visit someone who had been in a terrible traffic accident. And she walked into the room, and it was her 4th one that day. And she walked into the room, and there was this fellow sitting there, and his eyes were barely open, and he had machines everywhere, he had needles everywhere, and tubes everywhere. And she looked down and went, oh, and he ran out of the room. And she went to a phone and called up Ernest at home office and said, Ernest, pray for me. I just saw a sick person. That's our charge. And we are all so very, very different. Literally, if you ever lined up this practitioner core, shapes, sizes, colors, flavors, hair color, no hair, but we made this pact with ourselves that in order to get that license and pass those boards, that we are here to stand as a living, breathing, walking, talking example of applying the principles of science of mind so we can offer that up. And not all of us will take exactly the same road to get there, but you're going to know who it is you want to work with. That's why when, oh yeah, and what came to me in the practitioner role is I am not a minister. I haven't had the elocution classes. I haven't done this. I haven't done, I look in awe when Reverend Kathleen would do Stump the Minister, and she always had, an acceptable answer for whatever came up there because of all the training in the book learning. But our lives are a ministry. And guess what? Yours too. I guess that's the biggest message I have. And we're all in a growth pattern on this thing from one end to the other. And it starts with, what is it that I still haven't quite mastered? 12-step people know this one. The first of those 12 steps is admitted that there was something off here. And let me put it out to you. Would you agree that there probably isn't a human in this room that isn't at step one on something? Oh, good, I see some nods. All right, so, and then you look as we get into this stuff, and by changing minds time and time again, we come to a place where we've achieved some real comfort, not only with ourselves, but with that wisdom that you can just open yourself up to and let whatever you call spirit, God, inspire what comes out. That's what you're looking at here. I've got several notes, and guess what? This talk was not going to look like this when it first started. But it looks like how it is now because I got to listen to it and find out if I said anything worthwhile. But right now it feels pretty good. I know you're being loved. And that's the last thing I want to speak to for just a minute, and that is we all are going to change our definition of what these four qualities are. When we were a certain age, like little kids, our parents were like gods and they gave us everything and there was nothing around us but love. And then when we got to be about, when do the hormones start? Somewhere in there we had a very different idea of love, most of us. And around that there might have been a fair amount of fear too. And then it just changes, it evolves. We make choices on who we're going to be in a relationship with. and we think about what the criteria are. What are your criteria for being in a relationship today versus your criteria for being in a relationship 20 years ago? Look at how far we've all come. There's this voice that is available to us, and I was looking around for a quote, and I found it, and I wrote it down, and I guess you're going to miss it. So, I want to end on time. So, this is about choice. Choose again, or choose to keep pulling on this thread. There are 4 basic choices in the whole wide world for me right now, and 2 of them are being, and 2 of them are doing. And you can have one or not but not the other. They are God as you understand God, and that's going to change, or the ego. Ego. Kind of like a song of I, to the tune of me, 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 me. Or it's that part that makes decisions about how kindly and well you see yourself. Psychological definition is an example of ego is the way you look at yourself. Nothing wrong with that. But an example of evil gone mad is thinking that you're the smartest person on earth. I need sometimes to be in a 12-step program that says my name is Mel and I'm a recovering know-it-all. Those days don't affect me as much. Eckhart Tolle talked about it. When every thought absorbs your attention completely, when you are so identified with the voice in your head and the emotions that accompany it, that you lose yourself in every thought, in every emotion, then you're totally identified with form and therefore in the grip of ego. Ego is a conglomeration of recurring thought forms and conditioned mental emotional patterns that are invested with a sense of I, a sense of self, and nothing else. So, where in that continuum are we? And that's a question that we will all, if you choose to pull on the threads of this teaching, ask and answer for yourselves. So, am I going to choose spirit, God, or the ego? So in order to keep my ego in check, I've only got like one prayer right now. I call my God the boss, because that takes the heat out of it for a lot of folks that have a problem with God. And so my prayer is, boss, what do you need me to know right now? And then if I'm quiet, sometimes I get an answer. What I also know is that if I'm open to it, if I'm open at the top, if I'm teachable, I will get the beginning of an answer. The other big choice of ground of being is, am I in love or am I in fear? I walked out in fear, but the love feels good. Now let's talk about the doing stuff. The choice is to be, do I want to be justified or do I want to be healed? One or the other. So what does healed mean? Does healed mean, as it does in some places, laying on of hands and healed? No. Healed. No. It means to be no longer at the effect of what is getting in the way. So I can't take a behavior that came to backfire on me and be in principle if I'm standing here trying to justify it. But you don't understand. But you don't understand, God. My case is different. Somebody once told me that there are about 6 basic stories in the whole wide world, and you and I are one of them. Ooh, that hurt. No, it doesn't. And the last one is, do I want to be right? Do I want to be happy? How long have we seen... I'm debating if I should pull up... I'm going to pull up the third rail word, politics. As a high schooler, I had my first foray into politics. And I heard someone say, and maybe a few of you will remind this quote, and that is, politics is the art of the possible. Politics is getting everybody together who is willing to commit to a common high goal. And in order to make that work, we need to, first of all, not just be diverse, but we need to be inclusive. We need not to take any advantage over another for any reason of domination or control or manipulation. And people made choices in politics that were based on that covenant. Right now, it appears, but I'm not willing to believe in this appearance, that the various branches of what we call our political system can get together enough to decide what to have for lunch. When that stops, or when somebody says, wait a minute, I'm going for the highest good for all concerned. Another definition of love, by golly. When I can look out here and say, I love you, what I'm saying in this context is that I wish you to be and do and have what you want, whether or not it involves me. Sometimes that's the hard part. Whether or not it involves me. But to the degree that it's appropriate to involve me, I'll play. And along the way, I'm going to make mistakes, and so will you. And I'm going to have to do this thing that we call forgiveness. So that's it, guys. 4 basic choices: God or the ego, love or fear, justified or healed, right or happy. Take that home. Think about it. Ask yourself, where do I stand? And remember with me to remember. As we go into prayer, God really is, Spirit really is all and everything. And the allness, the wisdom, the joy, the passion, the magic the ultimate creative force, has a piece of you, and it has a piece of me, and a piece of us as a community. We are part of that, and it is part of us. And as we get quiet and not only recognize that it is here in this room and in each of us, we also know that it will guide and sustain and inspire and protect us. So what I declare and accept in the same breath is that the next steps of each of our personal path to greater and greater effectiveness as human beings in community, loving one another and learning from one another and empowering one another, shall make itself known in some form to each and every soul in this room, to each and every soul watching us whenever, wherever. That is the reality that we choose to live in this moment and in this day. And what that prayer is for you, that somehow, some way, some time in the next few moments of what we call time, there shall be a closer feeling of it and knowing of it, and the path shall be illuminated once more. With great gratitude and knowing, I simply relax into this truth. Allow it to have its way with us all, each to his own belief, each in its own way. Allow the divine to do what the divine does so very, very well. And with that, the people all said, and so it is.